Let us put our hands together like this as we ask God to bless us this morning. Oh Lord, you are indeed the giver of peace. You are the source of peace. Your name is peace. Grant us a life that is full of peace. Lead us in our deliberations so that we are peaceful through and through. We ask you, O Lord, to soften the hearts of those who have imposed embargoes on us. Enable us, O Lord, to commit to hard work, honest hard work, because this is what will enable us to defeat the hardships that we endure on a daily basis. All this we ask in your name. Amen.
Thank you very much. You can give me a round of applause. I think you know that Zimbabwe has all the religions, ATR, Christianity, and we tolerate each other. Thank you very much for that prayer. My task here, ladies and gentlemen, is to give you an overview of our program. The program aims to discuss the issue of sanctions as young people. You know that sanctions were imposed in 2002 under a legal instrument called Zidera by the Americans. So today it's a platform where we are going to discuss this as young people. I think we invited young people to come and be part of this program. But as you know, when you invite a certain sector, also our parents come. So we welcome all the parents who have come. Thank you very much. It means that you believe in the ability of young people. Before I give to the moderator, I want to acknowledge the presence of the leadership of the Youth League. As I have indicated, I'm the National Center for Administration for the Zanu Youth League. I have here our leader of the Youth League, the Deputy Secretary for Youth Affairs, Comrade Louis Matutu. Let me just give you a microphone so that he can greet you all. Comrade Matutu.
Thank you so much, Comrade. I'm not so sure whether I'm seated at the right place, because I would assume that this is meant for the panelists and other people. Please, for the meantime, we'll translate here. But I really appreciate the fact that as young people, we get time to discuss our own issues. We must not allow other people to sell certain narratives for us, but we need to discuss and have a clear understanding of what exactly is happening, what exactly is affecting us. It is when we sit down and discuss that we end up understanding each other even better. So I'm also here to learn and benefit from you. You know, yesterday I was in Lupani, at Lupani State University. It is set up like this, but of course there were more students. I learned a lot. We must never assume that we understand everything. But the little that we understand, if you combine together, it brings solutions to the Zimbabwean young people. I'm very happy because you are opening up to discuss the issue of sanctions. Different narratives where people see it differently. We'll come at a point where we agree and understand the reality of these sanctions and their impact on the lives of young people. So I thank you, Comrade Chirau. I'm an chair.
Thank you. Let's give him a round of applause for the wise words. I think one important issue that he raised is that no one has monopoly over ideas. But if we share and we cross-pollinate our ideas, we can come up with something that works. Allow me, for the sake of time, we are live on Sport FM. So make sure that our phones are off or are on silent so that we don't interfere with broadcasting. We also have other media houses that are streaming live on different channels. We've got Chat 263 and other channels that are also Zimbo Life is also there. Open Pali is also there. So this is a live program, so they are being seen all over the world. So let's make sure that whatever we do it with order. Allow me at this juncture, ladies and gentlemen, to invite Richard Mahomva, who is going to be our moderator this day, so that he introduces the panelists so that they can come in front. Thank you very much, Comrade Mahomva. Can you just give a round of applause as he comes forward?
Secretary. The panelists can just come so that we avoid the rigidity of formalities and you just introduce yourselves while seated. So many thanks in advance, panelists. A perfect morning to you once again, and thank you for affording us this opportunity to speak out as the youth of Zimbabwe. From the outset, let me express my deepest gratitude to the Zanu PF Youth League for creating an open space for Zimbabwean youth from across the political divide, from across the various sectors of our populace to come and speak out against sanctions. And we are actually glad that this space, which is actually being used for this conversation, actually consolidates the level to which Zanu PF has served as a broad-based structure for serving national interests. So today, I'm glad that this is not a partisan space, but it is a space that has regained its role in consolidating the values of national interest, and hence the invitation of our youth from all sectors of our populace. So without wasting much of our time, allow me to rove the mic and give 30 seconds or 45 seconds to our panelists to introduce themselves. I'll start off with the lady seated next to me.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Primrose Moyo, a UZ student studying political science.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kundai Wena. I'm a holder of the National Diploma in Mineral Processing and Extractive Metallurgy from the Zimbabwe School of Mines, and I'm a mining entrepreneur.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Tatenda Anastasia Meveta. I'm a member of Parliament for Sekechkomba constituency, and I'm also a member of the Speaker's Panel of Parliament. Thank you.
Good morning, colleagues. My name is Tafwazo Tubo Mbali. I'm an academic and a political scientist by profession, and then most importantly, a member of the party and apologetically.
You can laugh at this introduction. I'm Pablo Tinashe Chimsoro, former NAST Students Representative Council, a graduate, and it is a pleasure to be here.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Salingoni, and I'm the co-founder for Broad Alliance Against Sanctions. I am an academic, I am an entrepreneur, and I'm also an activist from civil society organizations. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, it's a combination of youth from all walks of life, political scientists, entrepreneurs, people in engineering, and also a student. So this in itself actually means that we should deduce various interpretations of the sanctions that emanate from their experiences. And maybe the starting point to this debate, I'll start off with the lady at the far end, who's the co-chair of the broad-based Alliance Against Sanctions, to unpack what, in her view, she thinks sanctions are. And in the process, I would also want us to unpack the historical and the legal background of Sanctions to say what is the personality of Sanctions according to our individual views as we kickstart our conversation. So what is the personality of Sanctions, the legal and the historical background of Sanctions in your view?
Sanctions were imposed on Zimbabwe after we took our land, after we did the land reform program. The United States, the UK, and Western powers, they saw it as a noble cause to impose illegal sanctions on Zimbabwe because we had taken what rightfully belongs to us. And in the past, I can say 2 decades, the mantra has been that the sanctions are targeted. Perhaps as an ordinary citizen, I would like to say the sanctions missed their target. And they targeted us as the vulnerable and ordinary citizens of Zimbabwe. Those who are on the sanctions list, they've never starved, they've never slept without eating. Their children go to school every day. But it's the ordinary and the vulnerable groups of society who have suffered from these sanctions. And it's what perpetuated us as the young people of Zimbabwe to say, let's take the fight to the doorstep of America, because they are the ones who enacted and ate the ZDR upon us. And that's why we've been camped at the American embassy since the 29th of March. Thank you.
Interesting perspectives. Probably over to the next comrade. We're allowed to clap hands for his one.
I think that is a well-deserved applause for her, because I was listening to their story yesterday, and it is over 200, right? 200 days they have been camped there. And before I share my perspective, I think as youth we have let our colleagues down, because for all those 200 days they are there, they are by themselves, and we have never considered joining them to support them and stand with them during this difficult time. But I'm glad that at least we're now having this conversation. I'll begin by quoting one imperialist who said sanctions will make their economy scream. That was the first statement. And I would now want to quote a statement by one of the most successful business people in Zimbabwe, who employs quite a number of people, pays a lot of tax to the government, and contributes towards charity, which has assisted so many people. That is Dr. Strive Masiwa of Econet. He said sanctions are like tying our hands on the back and expecting us to be fully productive. So what it means is sanctions are an attempt to cripple your economy. Why? Because one of your hands is tied at the back, so we cannot be productive. All the issues that we complain about, that we are not productive as a country, our minerals are not being productive, our land, our tourism and all that, it all goes back to the fact that we have one hand that is tied to our back. And that hand that is tied to our back is because of sanctions. So as they are evil, they are disastrous, and they are painful, terrible to say the least.
Oh, it's my turn. I'm quite very observant of the rules, so I would have wanted the chairman to give me the corrective instructions to speak. Let me attempt to elaborate what has been said by the 2 previous speakers without necessarily repeating what they have said. And I'll essentially zoom on the historicity of these sanctions, which is, I think it is very fundamental that every Zimbabwean understands. And that historicity will allow me to observe and conclude that we do not have targeted sanctions in the Republic of Zimbabwe. We do not have sanctions that are targeted at specific individuals, because if you were to ask me, I would ask you, is the CBZ Bank an individual? Is the RBZ Bank an individual? Is the defense industries individuals? By the way, just recently the Standard Bank, which is operating in Zimbabwe, has been made to pay a punitive fee of over $80 million in punishment for allowing funds to access to Zimbabwe, which under the sanctions regime that we call the Zimbabwe Democracy and Economic Recovery Act is there. It's not allowed. You understand that the key organ within the sanctions regime here is there. It's Office of Foreign Assets Control, which makes it illegal for funds that must make their way to Zimbabwe legitimately so don't arrive. So this is why I'm saying it is completely erroneous to say we have illegal sanctions, we have targeted sanctions. What we have are illegal sanctions, illegal in the sense that they were imposed unilaterally by countries of a bigotry disposition, by countries of a colonial disposition, by countries of an imperialistic disposition, most importantly by countries who are led by remnants of the racist Ku Klux Klan who thinks that black people are surrogates and are supported perennially so. I'm saying this in the light of the appreciation that the history of sanctions in Zimbabwe is tied directly to the context of colonization. The people who colonized this country are the people that have imposed sanctions 20 years later. You must ask yourself a fundamental question to say, why? We did not have this republic called Zimbabwe where we enjoy our freedoms regularly today because of a decision at Lancaster, as we are told. We have this freedom, we have this democracy, we have this enjoyment of our human rights, courtesy of a gallant liberation struggle that was fought against the same imperialists that have imposed the sanctions on us today. So this is why I'm saying when we're talking about the question of sanctions, we must be provoked, and we must really be provoked. We must really be serious when we're tackling this issue, because we must understand the nature of the person that has imposed sanctions on us. It's the former colonizer, it is his friends, and it is them who are coming us 20 years later after independence. They're imposing sanctions on us. The reason being, like what the previous speaker said, land. You must understand that the cardinal reason of our sons and daughters, our mothers and children participating in the liberation struggle, it was the question about land. Who doesn't know the Anglo-Nobel War and how Zimbabweans from Matebele to Mashonaland were dispossessed of our land? The whole reason for going to Mozambique, the whole reason why we have dead bodies who have been allowed to rot in the bushes, in the waters, in the streams, in Mgagao, in Chimoyo, in Nachibea, it is because of the question of land that our liberation and independence was never going to be final if the question of land had not been dealt with. This is why soon after the land reform, our country is suffering under sanctions. The government of Zimbabwe did not start the land reform through the Jabanja land reform process which people want to magnify today, in which some silly media houses who are allergic to research they don't even think about. President Mugabe and the Republic, former President Mugabe and his government went to the British, asking the Labour Party which had taken power to say the 10-year span which had been signed under the Lancaster House Conference, which talks about the willing buyer, willing seller, has lapsed. And people are becoming patient about their land. They want the land question to be addressed. And what happened? You had the British government then, the British government of Tony Blair, the British government that had elements such as James Straw, who said that no, some of us in the Labour Party come from as far as Scotland and Ireland and Wales, and some of us were former colonies of the British government, and therefore we have no responsibility to pay compensation to the white farmers. Because compensation was never supposed to be paid by the fighters who fought for their land and victory. The compensation under Lancaster House Conference agreement was supposed to be paid by the British government in cooperation with the United States of America. They reneged on that responsibility because they never wanted the black person to control land, which is what we do right now. That is why the government decided to take land, and after taking the land, sanctions were imposed. This is a clear, genuine history of sanctions which everyone
I quite understand the emotive standpoint that is coming from Comrade Mkwali, and the emphatic cardinal point around the extent to which the sanctions have been tied down to a level of colonial hegemony. And those of us who believe in the fight against neo-colonialism have these emotions, and these emotions are harbored in every part of our society. So maybe to also continue the debate, let's get the ladies' views around what they think about the sanctions. Ladies.
All right, thank you very much, our moderator. You know, it's quite a challenge to be speaking after a very heated and very energetic speaker. But anyway, I would like to do my best. Thank you very much. What I understand about sanctions is that there are restrictions. They were actually imposed in Zimbabwe after we had our, okay, what I would say is, what we realized is that it's a decision that we made as Zanu PF and that we made as government to make sure that at least we decide to move from a political independence to economic independence. I think what happened is that we had the land reform that was in 2000, and soon after the land reform, US had to impose restrictions on us as Zimbabweans. And these restrictions, I understand, like what the previous speaker said, they were not very much targeted, but what they were is that they restricted us from trading with other countries in terms of even our foreign policy. It was actually a US foreign policy that they put in place. And what ended up happening is that they enforced economic and trade sanctions against Zimbabwe, of which they made us not be able to get even a market for us to even sell our goods or anything that we might have. There is an issue of Barclays Bank, which was said by the previous speaker. That is one of instances whereby Barclays Bank was then penalized just for making sure that they trade or they do exchanges of any money with locals from Zimbabwe. So this was one issue that showed that indeed with sanctions, which are not only targeted, but we're actually targeted to certain individuals or certain companies that were actually trading in Zimbabwe. And again, there was also the ability for us to access foreign lines of credit. We were not able to even have any lines of credit within the business fraternity, and also even to process international payments. These were some of the sanctions that were actually imposed on Zimbabwe, and that was under the Zimbabwe Democratic Economic Recovery Act, which always says ZIDERA. And again, the other issue was that we also excluded from the African Growth and Opportunity Act, whereby us as Zimbabweans were not able to assist other African countries even in terms of trading and even in terms of even having economic relations. These are the other sanctions that were also imposed on us. And also, we also had some other sanctions of us not even getting any funding from organizations like IMF, organizations like World Bank, organizations like even the African Development Bank, which had always traditionally given us some funding. But from 1999 until to date, we have not been able to get this funding. So this also limits our economic productivity, for we do not have any access to any credit that we might have as a country. I'm sure that is all I can say in terms of sanctions. Thank you.
Thank you, and I feel honored to be speaking today about sanctions, especially in line with the mining industry. Firstly, I would like us to appreciate the mining industry itself. You'll find that Zimbabwe is very rich in terms of mineral deposits, such as gold, nickel, and the platinum, the palladium, and so on. And the country has got the magnificent Great Dyke, which stretches from the north to the south and includes places such as Mberengwa, Dawendel, Chegu to Kadoma. Why am I saying this? I want us to appreciate that indeed our country has got all the minerals resources that we need for us to develop, but then something is wrong, and what is wrong are the sanctions that has been imposed on the country. So you find that in this industry, it's very much capital intensive to the extent that it's normally dominated by those individuals, entities or groups that are financially well capacitated. And most of these, they are foreigners. And for us now, the Zimbabwean citizens, we are doing mining informally. But thanks to government, they are trying by all means to make sure that they formalize the sector. So all this, even if the sector is being formalized, but still we are financially incapacitated, not to register or things like that, but to fully establish so that we can come up with a product of value. And this is because of the sanctions that have been imposed. And I thank my colleagues, they have really explained well about ZIDERA, OFAC, and AGOA. With ZIDERA, you find that it resulted in the closure of international credit lines. Yet these credit lines, they were said to be assisting economic recovery and modernization. So you find that at the end of the day, the sanctions, the so-called mandate they have, it's actually contradicting what is happening on the ground. So at the end of the day, we are saying no to sanctions. Come the 25th, we are saying no to sanctions. They must be removed because they are making us incapacitated. Yet the youth constitute the greater population, which means if more youth are in mining, we can develop the economy and we can take it forward. But if we are incapacitated because of these sanctions, we cannot go anywhere. You find that with the same act under ZIDERA, during that time, at around 2001, we had projects that had already secured funding. But when it came to the issue, or to the point of issuing out the funds, because of Zidera, those funds were not issued out. We had ongoing projects. Those projects could not continue. Why? Because the funding was seized. So at the end of the day, you realize that the recovery of the economy and modernization was never going to be achievable. So in other words, we are saying these sanctions must fall because they are limiting us in terms of the funding we need. As Zimbabwe, we don't need resources because we have them, but we need the funding so that in terms of mining, we can extract and unearth the mineral deposit that is on the ground. Us as youths, and we are financially incapacitated in terms of extracting and processing this mineral deposit. So because we are incapacitated, we rely on the government for support, but we also need to appreciate that it's the same government again because of the Zidera Act that is being incapacitated. So we need to put our hands together and have one voice so that we speak that towards these sanctions being removed, because once they are removed, our government becomes capacitated, and all these issues that we have towards funding, well, the government can do it for us, and it can do it beyond our dream and beyond the way we think. So there's also the issue of foreign investors approaching us as the youths. You find that as they approach us, they have full knowledge that sanctions really do exist, and when they approach us in the mining space, that's when we realize that there is the 75-25% shareholding structure. Some because of these sanctions, they are so bad to the extent that they impose the 75-25. They don't even give room for negotiation. Why? They are taking advantage of the existing sanctions, and we are saying these sanctions, they must fall so that we can move towards economic recovery and modernization. So in the end, as youths, basing on mining as an economic activity, we are now living on hand to mouth. Yet it's a mining activity, and it is not supposed to be like that. Then we move to our OFAC. My colleagues, they've dealt with that very well. But so you find that because of OFAC, it cascaded down to business entities such as MMCZ, the Minerals Marketing Corporation of Zimbabwe, as well as Zimbabwe Mining Development Corporation, that's ZMDC. And of late, Zimbabwe Diamond Consolidated Company is also under some threats under these sanctions. So you find that because of issues as the terms, that is the prohibition terms associated with OFAC, you find that any individual or any group that wants to associate with Zimbabwe, they will see the sanctions as a measure or as a factor that will make them retreat or that will make them break down in terms of business. So in other words, they will employ retreating strategies. So out there, people are there that can assist us, but because of these sanctions, it's causing them to retreat. So we will continue to be financially incapacitated, yet we have friends out there as a country that are willing to assist us. So if we go to ZMDC.
Yeah, I think we'll preempt other issues. The forum is still lengthy, but we'll still preempt other issues. We'll come back to this ZMDC aspect. Yeah, and maybe moving on to the other speaker. I think as we proceed, let's just have a minimum of 2-3 minutes for each speaker so that we will unpack everything that we've prepared. So probably over to the next speaker as well.
Thank you so much. It's just the moment when you are emotional and the moment when you want things to change and you really know who's causing it. It's not that we don't know who's causing these things. We know. And so we want things to change. And today is a platform that we have to speak out.
Okay, thank you. Let me concur with my fellow panelists. From my own perspective as a student, sanctions, I can describe them as a punitive measure or tool which is used to discipline those who have gone against the law. But I am really surprised to the fact that we were hidden with these embargoes when we are not even sure of what we did wrong. the land reform program was never wrong. We just claimed, we took what belonged to us. Okay, so firstly we have to understand that the youth is the vanguard or the best line and the future of the country. Therefore the youths are the future of an economy, and they come up with innovative ideas that carry the economy and the country forward. But this cannot happen when a country is under the yoke of sanctions. Therefore, when we are talking about youth empowerment, we are talking about youth growth in youth investment, which growth in youth investment has not yet come about as a result of the effect of sanctions. Sanctions have stopped youth from doing various things, and we as youth, we really advocate that the sanctions must go, the sanctions must fall. Thank you.
I thought that since she's coming from the university, she would not only say sanctions must fall, she would also say fees must also fall. But anyway, that's a debate for another day. I think generally the issue, there is consensus from the panel that the issue of sanctions really comes as a punitive measure to fight against our realignment of property rights. This is what the panelists have presented. But again, there's also a historical allusion to issues to say our economies were traditionally tied down to the imperial economic hegemony. That is why the IMF has been presenting all these dictates on how we should administer our economies. And when we tamper with the egos of white monopoly capital, then they apply this punitive measure. So conclusively, the panelists are agreeing that sanctions were an outgrowth of the land reform program. But what is also missing, which I strongly feel our panelists must help us to also understand, is that when neo-colonial economic hegemony was fought, we had a neoliberal political front that also emerged. So we want to know if sanctions have preserved certain sectorial political interess. And maybe to start off, I know it's an emotionally charged issue. I would invite first to the floor Comrade Ngwari to unpack the aspect of sanctions as a preserve for sectorial political interests of the United States, of the EU. What are the sectorial political interests that they've been pursuing, regardless of the strong efforts of re-engagement that we've been putting across as a country? Ngwari.
Okay. Thank you very much. It's my privilege once again. I think I have watered down my emotions because I can also, feel that I'm in the company of good ladies as well. But anyway, let me, for fear of creating a fear environment for them. But let me, answer the question directly from what the Comrade Chair has said. People have defined the sanctions in various terms here, but my understanding, basic understanding of sanctions is that it is a punitive measure that is imposed on a country for wrong or right reasons. And that is why the conclusion is that the sanctions that were imposed on Zimbabwe were imposed by a colonial system that is now at a neo-colonial page, but for wrong reasons. That is why the lady is saying, we don't know what we did, what was wrong. And assuming that we had even done what was wrong, there is no one who is an adjudicator of Zimbabwe's internal affairs. And that is why, firstly, I must clarify that the sanctions that we have in this country are illegal. When we are saying are illegal, the world, no country is existing as an island on itself. That is why the United States of America itself was the country in the New York capital, where the headquarters of the United Nations is. And our president, even when he's on sanctions, even Robert, when he was on sanctions, he would go there whether they like it or not. It is because the American system understands that no country operates as an island. So because of that, when you are imposing sanctions on a country for wrongdoing, there must be consensus in the United Nations, because that is the prescription of the United Nations Charter adopted in 1945. So when a country then decides to impose sanctions on one of the countries without sanction or approval from the United Nations Security Council, through the procedures laid down in the United Nations Charter, then that country is acting illegal. And here, gathered, we are saying sanctions are illegal, and therefore the imposition of sanctions is equally illegal.
So there is an illegality cannot come out of an illegality. I mean, illegality cannot be mothered by an illegality. The sanctions that we have are illegal. True power is the power. Now, secondly, the United States of America has used the sanctions in various situations to start proxy wars or support proxy wars under guise and disguise the projects of democracy. In fact, let me make this very cardinal point before I explain further. The word democracy has always been used when the United States of America wants to impose sanctions on another country. It is the question of human rights has always been provoked by the United Nations. I mean, the United States of America and its allies whenever they feel this country is no longer desirable or this regime is no longer desirable for them in our context. The Zanu government as a liberation movement with a very, very fine history than any other political movement in this country is undesirable to the United States of America. It is undesirable to Washington. It is undesirable to the successive presidents of the United States of America, from stupid George W. Bush to Barack Obama to Trump today. They don't think ZANU-PF as an administration in Zimbabwe is desirable because it is the only organization that has stood firm domestically and internationally about the rights and the aspirations of the black person, whether North America or Trump. It is ZANU-PF that is topical. That is why, like it or not, his ills or not, but Robert Mugabe is one of the greatest statesmen that were produced to the world.
Let's
because these two against America. Now let me just shortly address the question of sanctions now. But sanctions are human rights and democracy. Now, ukatarisa shootings are anointing the world over. The worst form of shootings happens in Dallas, in Texas, and mostly they are targeted at black people in the United States of America. Secondly, the world's deadliest torture camp is found and administered by the United States of America. It is called Guantanamo Bay. When you demonstrate and burn buildings and start looting shops and attacking police officers like what our fellas do in the name of enjoying democracy here, you do that in the United States of America, you find yourself on a flight to Guantanamo Bay. We don't do that, but we are told we are undemocratic. So I'm saying the word democracy and human rights have been used as cover, but the sanctions are used to deal with undesirable regimes, and these regimes are undesirable for the United States of America because normally they stand for their people, and secondly, they stand for the fulfillment of the wishes of liberation. And that is why, Syria, question of sanctions. Just last week, I'm sure those who read the Herald yesterday, the ambassador of China was making it very clear America has imposed sanctions on Hong Kong. Under what so-called Hong Kong Democracy Act, what. The idea is to say, Hong Kong, the state must not respond. Rather, it must go and prophesy and preach the Bible to violent hooligans and protesters, so that the state becomes vulnerable to them. Yeah, regime change, guys. Let me end there.
Okay, so we'll have the two speakers over that side, and then we'll have the mic back this side. So just 2 minutes, we'll have the opportunity to unpack all these issues. So yeah, 2 minutes, and then we bring it over.
Just to shortly add on to what Mkoma Mugwane said. When you look at Zimbabwe in its place in terms of the Pan-African agenda, you realize that at some point in the history of DRC, there was a terrible civil war, and whilst the rest of the world stood and watched, it is only Zimbabwe that sent its troops to go and help with the security situation there, which tells the Pan-African, the place of Zimbabwe with regards to the Pan-African agenda. And following that exercise where our security forces went there to assist with the situation, you realize that our friendly relations with the United States never got better from there. Why? Because the United States of America knows that DRC is the richest country in terms of mineral deposits. The United States had its interest in the country. So what it did was it simply sponsored a civil war. It gave arms to some of the members of the community in DRC. And whilst the war was raging on, they were looting. I'm sure everyone here remembers one famous United Nations truck that was caught fleeing from DRC. And do you know what was in the truck? It wasn't medication, it wasn't food aid, it wasn't money, but it was cobalt, the mineral itself. So whilst it disguised as fighting for human rights, whilst disguised as fighting for democracy, but what these people know is that once you and I are busy fighting against ourselves, saying that we want what rights to be upheld and all that, they're busy looting. And when someone now steps in to say that, no, let's preserve the wealth of this nation by contributing our security forces, then you can no longer become their friends because wavara pavari kudya. Yesterday, someone was telling me about the German shafts. When Germans realized that Zimbabweans are taking back their land, what they simply did is they bought cement, they filled it in the mining shafts which they were working on, just to make sure that you can never get access to those minerals again. So those are the kinds of things that we should always think about when we are talking about the United States and the context of Zimbabwe with regards to the Pan-African question and also the emancipation of the individual, the native and the citizen of the Zimbabwe country.
In my own view, I think the American federal government and the Western powers are just using these economic sanctions to coerce the people of Zimbabwe to behave in a certain way which they want us to behave in. And I think it's a repetition of what happened in the slave trade. When the slave trade was abolished, it wasn't Africa which was paid for its underdevelopment, but it was the slave traders who were paid to abolish slave trade. So these Western powers have a way of continuously wanting to manipulate Africans and black people and use our resources. And I want to say to the Americans and the Western powers, it's not a case that the Lord blessed us with resources in Zimbabwe. Those are our natural resources, and they shouldn't use them to manipulate the people of Zimbabwe to the extent that even the under 5s suffer, even the children who are still in their mother's homes suffer because of these sanctions. I'm saying to the Americans and to all the Western powers, enough is enough. We are said mapupa ako achambuka, and right now is the time. Mapupa ako Zimbabwe are speaking, and the people of Africa are speaking. We will never be exploited again by the Americans and the Europeans, and they should stick that into their heads. And I also want to say to those who called for the sanctions in the name of democracy and human rights, we have had elections since independence in Zimbabwe, and no term of office has ever been extended to suit one's needs, meaning that there is democracy in Zimbabwe. They talk of rule of law. We see even government officials being taken to court for the crimes that they would have committed, meaning that there is rule of law in Zimbabwe. We see even Zanu PF officials being taken to court even for cases of corruption, meaning that there is rule of law in Zimbabwe. So they shouldn't take lies and come and give restrictions to Zimbabwe using lies. They should use the truth, and they should face us as Zimbabweans. If they think of recolonizing us, they should just come out in the open and say, no, Zimbabweans, we're thinking of recolonizing you. And Isusu, as my youth was saying, we will not allow them to do that. Thank you.
Wow. I think we have been clear on the philosophical, on the legal, and the historical side of sanctions. And then the most pertinent issue that we need to look at, there is the gender-inclined perspective. There is the youth demographic-inclined perspective. So we also need to ask ourselves, how are our youth affected by sanctions? How are our women affected by sanctions? How is the student fraternity directly affected by sanctions? We have got graduates, young people. There is this notion that a greater part of our people are not getting employed, and that on its own has got a direct bearing on the lives of youth. So if we could unpack that, over to you now.
All right, thank you very much. Just to add on to that, I think the first question that we need to really address is this. UN is supposed to be the one which is supposed to be imposing sanctions on any country. It is legally allowed to do that. That's the only institution that is allowed to do that. Then we need to ask ourselves the question, why then US? Just because it's the first and powerful country in the world. Is that the reason why it's doing that? So it does not have a mandate whatsoever to impose sanctions on any country that is unlawful. For it to go in parliament and then it enacts a law that is against a certain country, that is unlawful. So the first start-off point that we need to say is that as Zimbabweans and as people of Africa, we are not allowed to be having any other country going ahead and putting on imposing sanctions on us. That is unlawful. That's the first thing. The second thing that I would like to say is that they realized that there was a powerful institution that was there to choose a certain decision towards the welfare of his people. That is what happened. In a situation whereby, as Zimbabweans, we went on and we were given land, and this land was actually going to equip us to be better people. Zimbabwe was a great basket of Africa, and that alone was that it had potential to even become one of the most powerful countries in the world. So considering that US itself was the most powerful country and is until now the most powerful country, it realized that there was a threat that was there. And what did it do? It went to parliament and then it had to create a law that they had to say that Zimbabwe doesn't have to access certain issues that would actually propel its economic productivity. But however, let me go on to say that for us we see this as a regime change agenda. They want to remove the government that is the government of the day. That's what they want to do. They want to make sure that at least they use any mechanism so that at least they'll be able to make or create a puppet government of their own, and that we cannot allow. And when we look at issues of economic sanctions, what they do is that they'll make the economy not to function. And when the economy does not function, what it does is that it then makes the young people, it makes the women vulnerable. What it does is that we are in a patriarchal society, whereby we realize that we have got men that are very much controlling our economy, or that are controlling most of the means of production that we have. And you realize that when they are incapacitated, that means that even us as women are also incapacitated. Because if you look at the percentage of women that are in Zimbabwe, most of them depend on men. And when they are incapacitated, what it does is that as women, we do not have the capacity to even move. We are the breadwinners. As much as it is, you might think we are not the breadwinners, you think men are, but we are the breadwinners. In that, we are there to help the breadwinners be able to afford us in every living way that we're doing. So what ends up happening is that when we are there, we end up having a situation whereby you cannot even provide for the house. You cannot even provide for the children at home. You cannot even provide anything that will make life easy for any young person. So what then ends up happening is that we become vulnerable. What ends up happening is that you realize that even women, they go on and then they start prostitution. Because you end up realizing that how can I be able to move? How can I be able to live? So what it does is that when our economy is not functioning, us as women, we are very much vulnerable. Us as women, we are incapacitated. Us as young people, we end up engaging into early child marriages. The reason why you realize a lot of young people get into early child marriages is that you realize that whenever they are limited resources, we go on and then we make the men go and then maybe probably go to school. But as women, what are we there to do? We are being forced to go into early child marriages. This is the situation that we have as a country. And what we are saying is that the moment that sanctions are there in Zimbabwe, our economy will not function. The moment that sanctions are there in Zimbabwe, us as young people, we end up not even having jobs. How can you have a job when ZFC is not allowed to even get a credit anyway? You are able to get to when ZFC goes there and then it's given a credit and then it starts becoming functional. But you won't be able to do that simply because you realize and you only realize that they are incapacitated in terms of even FDI, they are incapacitated even of their capacity in terms of even getting any funding from any nation. So we are incapacitated as a nation. I thank you.
Thanks for that gender perspective. So briefly, gender, youth, affection, the infliction of pain on the youth and the women.
I would want to make reference to AGOA, that's African Growth Opportunity Act of 2000. You appreciate that Zimbabwe is still excluded from the benefits that are supposed to be derived from AGOA. Yet Zimbabwe, in terms of mining, it has the richest deposits. I'll give an example of chrome. The chrome that we have in Zimbabwe is of much high grade, and it can even compete at continental levels when we talk about other continents. But then, it being of high grade, you appreciate that under AGOA, we cannot get the same value that is associated with the high grade of our chrome that we have. So this now is related to the emerging of the middleman industry. You realize that our profits, that we're supposed to get, they are being exported as a result of this middleman industry. Munhu anouya achibva kwaanenge achibva uko otaura kuti chrome yako ndinogona kukutengera, and normally anotaura a price that is way below, but then because you don't have a choice, because you are financially incapacitated, you end up selling that chrome at a price that is way below than the actual value it is supposed to derive. So at the end of the day, we are now saying this middlemen, Kanalatora chrome here, the example I'm using, they take it back to those countries which are referred to as first world. And when they take it there, they are selling it at a much better price. Yet the same resource is coming right here from Zimbabwe. So now this issue of middlemen is then now affecting our economy because profits are being transferred from Zimbabwe, where they are supposed to be, to other countries. So in other words, middlemen are extract. So this industry, middlemen, is being as a result of sanctions, especially the AGOA sanctions, because so I will continue to say it. These sanctions must be removed because our resources only our natural resources will make us a fully functional economy. And so these sanctions must be removed and this middleman industry must be removed. But because of this AGOA, which we are saying it has to be removed, to know a better value from our minerals, a better value from the mineral deposits that we have. Because the challenge now that's happening is the resource is depleting and the profits are being exported. So if we don't wake up now as youths, by the time we become that generation where we have children, grandchildren, and so on, resources will continuously be depleted and profits will continuously be exported. And so our economy will never recover. And so this is the time for us to say, AGOA must go.
I'm also told, before the next speaker comes in, I'm also told there's Wi-Fi, so you can log on to Sanctions Busters. It's open Wi-Fi. Let's get the issue viral. Let's get other youths in conversation, and let's speak out. Over to you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to talk about the effects of sanctions on youth, especially university students, mainly targeting the females. Firstly, socializing with other youths from other countries is becoming a problem because the traveling restrictions that are there on our leadership ultimately affects us as the youth, because wherever we might go carrying a Zimbabwean passport, it's like we are carrying a negative tag, and this has barred us from associating with fellow youth. Sanctions have barred the youth from sharing ideas, accessing new technology elsewhere, which has put a damper on their empowering initiatives and how they can come up with emerging businesses. For example, I have a cousin brother who wanted to apply for a scholarship to a Western country, but Pai Filama forms and DT, Pai in the section A eligibility, then the response he got was he can't be able to get a scholarship because Zimbabwe is under sanctions. So that is a barrier on us as students, because we want to go out there to explore, to share our ideas with our fellow colleagues, but then these sanctions are overweighing us. Let me quote Kedley and Witkoff, 2004, who exposed the following undesirable effects of sanctions on vulnerable groups of the targeted societies. These are high death toll due to inadequate facilities. For example, recently at UZ, we lost one of our female students, self-poisoning, because Pachkoro we don't have adequate medical facilities. We had to rush her to Parenya to our end. By the time Panashka Koko, she had already died. So this is another burden on us, high incidence of school dropouts. For instance, the more sanctions imposed patiri, they don't only affect our parents. When our parents are affected, our leaders are affected, we, the youth, are also affected. Because there's no way I don't have fees for you. Or what it means as a female student, I have to resort to other means, which lead me into prostitution. Those are my cases, HIV and AIDS are rising. Maybe if I try to look for a place, then I can help the DNA. But this is not good to us. Moving on to high unemployment as factories and industries close down. The moment sanctions are imposed on us, they are crippling our economy. Our factories and industries are closing down. To the extent that you finish your degree, then you want to go out there, you want to go and start something, but you can't do that because there is no way you can work. The industries are closed, the factories are closed. It's like no person go farm street without nothing to do. You are a holder of a degree. This is so torturing to us. Then we move on to low volumes of international trade. Even if you think of our government is trying by all means to empower us as youth. You start your business, but the restrictions on the international marketing are not hinder us from progressing because we now have low volumes of international trade. You can't do anything. Then lastly, the acute shortages of basic commodities leading to malnourishment and death. Closure of industries and factories affects us. As a girl child, we need sanitary pads. We don't have many companies producing that for us. We have to import.
Precisely, yeah, those are some of the issues, very critical issues, emotionally charged, especially coming from our students. This would not be a youth forum if we limit the conversation to our esteemed guests. So I think Comrade Tangi will assist us to rove the mic, maybe not just now, but pretty soon. We'll start off with getting a few questions from our media fraternity just before this stage, because we always know they love to voice out issues and also get a detailed account of issues. So I will give the floor to our journalists who might want to ask the panel, and they can show that by raising of hands, and then we can pick up our journalists who want to speak up. That is one. Any other? Well, our journalists do not want to interrogate issues. I suppose everything has been successfully exhausted. So I'll pass the mic for a very brief question from my good colleague there. Just one brief question. And then immediately we would roll the mic, so be on standby with the mic.
Well, my name is Zanu. I consider myself also a nationalist. Just a quick one. I just want to make this point to the panelists. I just came across a sentence here. In return, the public's promise to guarantee a perpetual neo-colonial state in Zimbabwe, from which European and North American transnational opportunities will continue to save the people's natural resources. This statement came from a document read between April 10 and 1479 by Zanu at the APSO conference in Lusaka. My argument is that sanctions are not new. They were predicted. So it's good why this scenario. Now, a quick one, then I leave. I said I'm also trying to be a nationalist and a journalist at the same time, so I won't take time. Now, I'm hearing a lot about the United States. I don't know how sure we are that the United States is invisible. Now, my pain in this meeting, in as much as we have emotions here, Zimbabweans will give the American embassy land here in Iran, not in Peking. Here, right here. So where does the United States get powerful? The data that we talk about was not imposed by the largest trading partner for Zimbabwe in 2002. We have a strategy. The data was imposed by the Americans. And Tony Blair even went further in this Commission of Africa of Peace. Quick one. Now, finally, my argument is simple. What I'm saying in Zimbabwe is that there is room for strategy. The primary industries that you talked about, for instance, do not always need direct foreign investment. We might have made mistakes. If you put investors in strategic industries, tomorrow when you call them, they are sanctions. That's all we have. That's all I can say.
So I think we'll start off by taking 3 questions from the crowd. I suppose that one is addressed to you, the first one, but we'll take more questions from the crowd, maybe 6 questions from the crowd. And comments as well, but let's make them brief. So the microphone is roving. I saw 1 with the dog there, 2 over there. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay.
We've come to a point where we speak the truth, because if it's being forbidden, then we're breaking all the rules. The sad truth is that we do have foot soldiers of America within our borders. We do have those who are campaigning for sanctions to tarry longer than they already have. Our own countrymen. So, and I'm happy that we have an MP here. I want to ask, why does Parliament not come up with an act, maybe a patriotic act, that punishes those Zimbabweans who work against the national interests? Because we do have a group of incorrigible, rotten to the core and patriotic compatriots who are working against our interests, yet they are Zimbabweans. They are advancing the American agenda in our own land. Why doesn't Parliament do something about it and do something now?
Good morning, Ojambo, ni hao. I go by the name of Tabani Nyati. I'm in the legal profession, but also a member of who's fighting against the removal of sanctions. They must be removed. Okay, first things, let's go straight to the point. These sanctions are illegal, and I like what my colleague said, because natural to raise that point. These sanctions, first and foremost, we should remember it's targeted at the ordinary citizens. It's not political, it's not on Zanu, it's not on MDC, but it's affecting each and every ordinary citizen. So if you see any member, sanctions are Zimbabwe, that person is a problem. And at the end of the day, something should be put on paper. If it is found, could the sanctions are put in place. A prison sentence, even a jail sentence, should be put in place, because it's treasonous one way or the other. We cannot deny that, because if people are still suffering, if people are still being affected, it is not only economical, it is not only social, but also mentally. And one other thing, thank you, Youth League, Zanu Youth League, for putting this platform, but I believe that action should even have been done earlier, because you see that people like to put blame on the government, saying that the government is not doing enough. But if you see that if the masses could have been taught earlier, especially the youth, since the youth constitutes of the larger percentage here in this country, then when people could know. It's not because the government doesn't like us or they keep on looting, but there are people who are trying to use the sanctions as a scapegoat to keep on trying to punish the government as the bad people, in which that They are not, but there are people behind that who are trying to use that as a scapegoat to keep on trying to punish the government as the bait at the end of the day. So thank you very much.
Yeah, my name is I'm also from Zimbabwe Youth Action Network. We are also against these illegal sanctions. Yeah, my question is actually directed to Dr. Kwadi. As an intellectual, I also need you to unpack to us as youth as Zimbabweans. We need to really know about the issue of regime change agenda being used by the United States of America with these illegal sanctions. You colleagues, there was a guy called Christopher Dale, an American ambassador who wrote the hell this night. He actually said that he actually said Tendai Mbeki, Nelson Chamisa, the future leaders of this country. Who was Christopher Dale in Zimbabwe? Who was Christopher Dale in Zimbabwe to decide on us on which leadership which need to take us? So, Dr. Ngwadi, okay, you are doing the PhD, my brother. I want you to unpack to us. We need to know the issue of regime change agenda being used by America. You need to unpack, you need to tell us as Zimbabwe, as young people in Zimbabwe, to really know that what exactly is sanctions, what is the American standard on this issue of sanctions. Dr. Ngwadi, this question is actually directed to you.
Thank you. Just a contribution. But first, before I contribute, allow me to thank my brother. You showed us the beauty of diversity, the beauty of love that we have as Zimbabweans. But however, it is that diversity that has led to a lot of people to campaign for sanctions in Zimbabwe. It is that diversity that has affected our social, political, economic fabric as used by the international actors such as America. What is there, Zimbabwe Democracy and Economic Recovery Act? But we are recovering from what? That's my question. We are recovering from who? That's my question. They want us to recover from the land regime, the land reform program that we undertook in 2000. They want us to go back to the land regime of 98. But now you go back to 2018 in March, April, summer, they had an amendment act of the ZIDERA. Under section 2, they talk about reconfiguring Zimbabwe, but we are reconfiguring to what? They are talking about rebuilding Zimbabwe, but rebuilding it to where, to who, for who, and why. So these are the pertinent questions that we should understand when we talk about sanctions. You see, when we talk about sanctions, African countries right now, our agenda is to develop into a upper middle income economy, which means we have to have a broad-based approach into how we're going to develop our economic and social strategies. But right now, you can't talk about a middle-income economy if you don't have access to capital. You can't talk of a middle-income economy if you don't have a domestic policy that actually supports your industrialization, because it needs capital. We need capital, and capital is found out there. Yes, you can talk about, my brother right there talked about we can actually resuscitate some of our industries using domestic capital, but we have a larger chunk of our people being low income earners, and they are at a low income level. So the domestic capital that we need to attract it and access it there. That's why we are saying Zimbabwe is being open for business, because we need to attract capital. But that capital is found where in Seoul, that capital is found in New York, that capital is found in Beijing, that capital is found in Beirut, that capital is found in Sao Paulo. But we cannot access it because our hands are tied. We need to fight against sanctions as youth. We need to stand up against sanctions as youth and say this is our time. Because under international law, in any case, war is actually designated as an illegal instrument of foreign policy, and sanction is an act of war. It is an act of war. And right now, we are at war. And unfortunately, the enemy is not a physical enemy. We can't use the gun and the banner to fight against the enemy. We need to use policy, we need to use pressure, and that's why I want to thank the world of SADC for standing up with Zimbabwe and saying that we will support SADC in every other policy that they want to initiate in Zimbabwe, as long as this is beneficial to our national interest. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm used to preaching and teaching, so allow me to stand. My name is
is Alexander Uselo. Ndinongovawo citizen yeZimbabwe. I have friends in Zanu, best friends in Zanu, Mapururu in DC. It explains why I'm here. Thank you. I don't have questions. I just have some few submissions in the context of sanctions. Because sanctions goes beyond a ZANU-PF narrative. It's a Zimbabwean narrative. And we have to put sanctions in their proper perspective within the context of the Zimbabwean narrative. What have been the problems that have been bedeviling Zimbabwe from 1890 up front? That's the grand narrative. Allow me, comrade moderator, you know I am a teacher. So I know you cannot give Nerera time to give eulogy per gravesite, so I will a little bit eat into your time. So in 1890 we have the settlers arriving, and it was a national dispossession question. The question of the day was dispossession from land. Indigenous people being dispossessed from their land. That is 1890 to 1922. 1923 we have a new narrative. The new narrative was a settlerism narrative. You have settlers saying, no, we cannot be the 60th province of South Africa, we want to be independent. But all these questions that we are talking about, they deliberately excluded the indigenous people. These were national questions determined by expatriates, determined by foreigners on the Zimbabwean land. But come the 1963 period up front, the major narrative, the major question has been the question of land. So the land question is the national question of the day. But unfortunately, from 1990 with the emergence of ISA, you have a whole national question being diluted. There was the issue of land vis-a-vis the issue of human rights, good governance, and democracy. That's the current vexatious question up to this day. You have a warm, excited charlatan generation trading sanctions with issues of human rights. No, you cannot put sanctions on the similar scale with human rights, with democracy and good governance to say, yeah, before we remove sanctions, we call for the removal of sanctions from America, the government must stop abductions, they must stop beating people. That's hypocrisy and ignorance of the highest order coming from highly esteemed political elites in some sections of our society. Sanctions cannot be put on the same scale with any other so-called atrocity whatsoever, not necessarily exonerating government from social ills, bad deeds that have occurred in the past. We cannot wish that away, but we cannot then use the democracy, good governance narrative to trade it with the sanctions to say, no, let's deal with this first before we mind the sanctions. People must read, people must learn. Then you have the emergence of Tony Blair in 1997, which informs why we have sanctions. What did Blair say? What did Blair do? Blair claimed that Africa was a dark spot in his conscience. How can you deal with an imperial leader reducing Africa as a dark spot in his mind? So in his mind, a dark spot needed cleansing, and one of the instruments was sanctions. So you have a whole youthful leader reducing a continent into a tiny dark spot in his conscience. It explains why Clayshot ignorantly said Britain does not have any responsibility whatsoever to the compensation of land because they came from the generation of the colonized and not the colonizers. The so-called architects of rule of law for the first time abrogated international law. The moment you use law selectively to suit your needs, that's abrogation, that's rule by law, not rule of law. And this is what is happening. I'm about to finish. Then you have my sister passionately speaking about AGOA. Yes, that's okay. But the current myth in Zimbabwe is the myth of the investor. Let's not think in the investor concept as if someone will come with the sex of money and pour in Zimbabwe. It has never happened anywhere in the world. Yes, we have sanctions. Yes, we are tight in our bags. But it's a myth to believe that a certain investor will come with the truckloads of cash.
Yes,
we have to make things happen and it will work. Then lastly, comrade moderator, when we are looking at the discourse of sanctions, in this context, I also believe in African philosophy. This is what we call a dariro. So, pachindau tinoti mudariro munetariro. So this is the dialogue. So Zimbabwe is in desperate need, not of dialogue, but dialogue. We have to sit around a fire, around some microphones, some cameras. This is modern day fire. We have to bring everyone like an octopus, let's reach in every port, every leg. It has to be inclusive because there is hope in dialogue. So this is the beginning and the future is bright. Thank you, Youth League. Thank you.
Let me just thank the comrade as we take to answer the questions that have been answered. And thank you very much, comrade. You know, he's an academic and a good friend of mine, but he's also comfortable to be called comrade in the truest sense of the meaning of the word, not the other ways outside there. So, but let me just answer the question, just to disabuse the listeners and the fellow panelists. My brother, I'm not yet Dr. Mkwani. I'm still aspiring to be there and still getting through my studies, and hopefully in 2 years' time you can comfortably call me by that time. So I just wanted to make that one very clear. But as well, just to start with the question that you have asked, and most importantly, you talked about regime change, Christopher Dervish, and what you wrote about the future leaders of this country. You know, the issue is what has already been unpacked by, you know, Mr. Hussein, we've also talked about it, but maybe just in detail. You see, how regime change, the strategies operate. I'm just giving you some, I wanted to whisper, but unfortunately, let me just go through. How regime change, the strategies operate. Just have a look at the CIA files, because it is the driver and the chief implementer of regime change strategies on the behalf of the United States of America. And Christopher Tell is one of their key elements. And that is why, if you check his history very well, in every country that he were, after his departure, America would come and intervene militarily and topple the government. And the reason why that only could not happen in Zimbabwe, go to Thabo Mbeki, the former president of South Africa, and what he wrote about the British chief of staff of the army, was talked to Tony Blair from militarily intervening in Zimbabwe, saying, and I quote, we met them in the DRC through our proxy enemies when they were coming for Operation Restore Legitimacy. Those who are veterans, ex-combatants, are still in the army, and they are still very active enough and very, very shrewd in terms of military tactics. What Kanababa threw out DRC, what more in their own soil? So, please, this is a vote for TAP. And again, on top of that, diplomatically, South Africa through President Thabo Mbeki had said it will not cooperate with the imperialists and the British and the Americans in particular in terms of giving them templates to launch military attacks against Zimbabwe. And so this is Christopher Tell. So because why you will be future leaders of this country, it is the project they are projecting. The idea is to psych you up, to start warming up to the potential. Maybe just like already, those who I don't know, and I WhatsApp groups of various, you have seen they have started psyching up some obese colleague who I cannot talk about his name anyway, it's not necessary. But let's say the whole strategy is to destroy ZANU-PF, and that is why Papa Sipa,
we are having these sanctions, and now everyone, the purpose of having sanctions was going to say, to the regime change, we will equip and make angry. Every Zimbabwean must be frustrated, must be fight against sanctions like Zataita Presa, but she will never elections tell Zambia, but because the economy is being screwed, it is screaming, everyone is screaming. Now everyone is asking for jobs that cannot come by, everyone is asking for cash, and we want to expect the government to print cash regularly so that tomorrow we in the previous era of quintillions. And Zuzoni, Zoramba Shitzika, Kanazazika, immediately let's point our arrows at the government. Everyone will talk about he did this, President Nagawa this, President Nagawa that. This is what is happening today. And let me make this very cardinal. The strategy also involves some media houses. That is why but it doesn't ask. It happens. A discussion has already started. How bad is Mnangagwa? 4 days when he was already in office. I'm sure those some of you are know. And people have been psychic to that. So he did this. The idea is to separate him from the collective and make him an individual. So that challenges that are facing the country becomes Mnangagwa's individualism failure. And then that also provoked even those in the party who everything has been he did this. So the strategy is a well-choreographed strategy that involves opposition. It also involves media houses who are paying their personnel not because of the papers they are selling, but because of funds that comes through the USA embassy, the JFIT. We know that anyway. And we don't want to talk about the names of the journalists, but the other one embarrassed himself with the Mtene Zambia just a few weeks ago. You saw that. Okay. So now because of that, this is how regime change is operating. My sanctions, 2002, just before the presidential election, Morgan Tsvangirai, and I quote, I don't if you have the screen, I will show the video, I have it here. Morgan Tsvangirai was seated in the garden chairs in his house in Zimbabwe. He said, he is asking, Komdara, then he says, you know how he said, it is there on video, I could put it here and then allow the people to see the audio and video. He was putting on a green shirt, a jean trousers, he was seated comfortably a seat way. Then he would say, we have asked it, and we are on record asking the European Union to impose sanctions on this country, but look what they are doing. They are taking long to impose the sanctions. Now we are only left with 3 weeks to go into the elections. They are going to impose the sanctions. Will they have any effect on this regime? Because only the sanctions to be imposed a bit earlier, so that things will start to go sour, and then people will start aiming at the government. The other day it was Jonathan Moyo, the person who was staying an ardent critique of this government and a champion of sanctions. He's become an activist campaigning for the maintenance of sanctions. But here is him, just a few years ago when sanctions were imposed, he said, and I quote, tell me in the world the most dangerous superpower that is surviving is the United States of America after the fall of the Berlin Wall and the end of the Cold War. Now if that country is imposing sanctions on us, while at the same time working with opposition Trojan horses to destabilize our internal politics, to the extent that Morgan Tsvangirai is saying, and this is how he was cutting his throat, explaining, cut electricity, cut water supply, close borders against Zambia. People will have nowhere to run to. They will start pointing fingers at Zambia. That was Jonathan. Then he said, how would you then expect our government to respond? You see, today, because it's no longer in the comfort of cabinet chairs, it's now out to say maintain sanctions. I'm saying this because potentially tomorrow it will be you, maybe Abraham Zanu or Abraham government, you will start saying sanctions are good. Let's have a collective, united voice. I'm done with that, but let me answer the other question that came from him. We gave the American land to build the embassy. The question would not be about giving them land to build an embassy, which is something that Zulu is not bahasha at this age. But I'm able to understand how government operates in diplomatic, the question of diplomatic etiquette in the area. You see, it's as good as having a diplomatic mission from the United States of America. Somebody would say, then we cut diplomatic ties. But the reason why it is called diplomacy, which is because there must be room for what we call undercover engagements must be given their space. When we say undercover, not because they're sick, but we are saying the art of diplomacy is that you don't do megaphone. Okay, but when things escalate to that level, which is where potentially we are moving to, we will lobby with the government, and I'm good, our leaders in the Youth League are here, we will lobby to say the time has come for us to magnify and amplify our voices against this bigotry nation. Okay, so the question of giving them land is a question that is covered within the areas of diplomatic protocols and not really about whether we love the Americans or not. That is why we also still have an embassy in Zimbabwe House in New York, by the way, and we maintain diplomatic relations with them. Maybe my issue now is when it comes to tactical measures, somebody asking about Parliament. I'm saying this, but I will not exhaust my article that I've written, which must be publicized, I think, on the 25th of October, on the day of the sanctions. But the good thing is that I have a parliamentarian that I respect so much, and she is here. Honorable, I'm sorry. You know, to go on beach and to pay this also. Now, to take them to you on behalf of your colleagues. The truth does not stink. Okay? Now, people would have wanted to think sanctions. Okay, you say the question of sanctions is a national narrative. Very well spoken. But now, we have a sector within the national narrative that is for pro-sanctions. That is white, and that means, Shamisa, go to the United States of America every February or January. Please take your calendar, take your timetable. Next year they will be there around this time. But she ended up committing on Senator James Flake to discuss about how to tighten further sanctions, how to renew. That is why, after they lost to the Supreme Court ruling, they said, Zimbabwe will increase more sanctions, will make sure that this country will not get any pain. You see, somebody saying that. And not so long ago, the MGC Alliance, there's a song that says, "My sanctions, oh yeah, my sanctions," which is immoral to say, I'm certain my tongue of my sanctions. So now the question here is, take Zanu into the ring, and it's like taking Floyd Mayweather and Mike Tyson into the ring. What sort of Mayweather wants to let's go and fight. Now, what was already saying? So now the question here in Zimbabwe is that tighten the screws on ZANU-PF government, asphyxiate the economic space, make the economy shrink, let the people angry, and when they are angry, they will start beating their sword against the same ZANU-PF. And you move on. So move on, because Tikatarisa Vananda demonstrations are violent, violent demonstrations, Tikatarisa violent demonstrations, Okuluta and Okazorika. And it's not going to because you believe that all these problems are coming from sanctions. But while we try to have sanctions, that's what was the don't every day, but it is resolved. And we don't they are running into the street every day, demonstrating about wages, but they don't want to talk about sanctions because it's some guys already. So when I go to buy one in 1799, the United States of America, which is one thing that makes me admire their nationalism. It is uncompromised. 1799, we have a man called George Logan. What does he do? He goes to France, engage in covert discussions with France on behalf of the United States of America on an interesting diplomatic issue that had created disputes between France and America. The president's name was Madison. Then, you know what happened? The next month that followed, Logan, by the way, was also a parliamentarian just like you. This is what they say. We can never tolerate an individual or a group of individuals that do not have any standing on behalf of the state or government to negotiate with any foreign country, whether friend or hostile to the interests of the United States of America on behalf of America. Once you do that, you disqualify yourself from becoming a public officer, and you may never attain that position again. Now let me come to first of all at 9/11. The terrorists do what they do, and we are told it's Osama bin Laden, and then what happens there happens. What then do they do? The next day, George Bush comes out and announces that we are going to sign a law, a prohibitive and deterrent legislation to ensure that that thing does not happen in the land of America again. It came the Patriot Act, which these guys are talking about, the Patriot Act. And all the Republicans and the Democrats came together and no, I know America is which is not what our fellows are doing. That's why we are marching against sanctions. They are marching for them. Even notwithstanding the rest of the region is giving us solidarity. they are marching for them. So this is what the amendment did. They came with what was called the Logani Act, and they named the Act of Parliament by the name of the culprit to say no individual diplomacy was going to be tolerated on behalf of the United States of America. Now, which is what brings us to what the question has been raised by this debates. Which is what I believe in. The part, ironically, which makes me want to attack you, Honorable, is that the part that is the majority in Parliament, which is 2/3, enough to pass any legislation. It is the part that is fighting sanctions viciously again. It is the part whose government has been hamstrung and collapsed by sanctions. But then, the challenge now is that our members of Parliament think that they were voted into Parliament to increase the volumes of GS and GS. Yet they have not even set seriously to consider such punitive and deterrent forms of legislation in order to ensure that our state from today, the future, the children that are born will be protected from elements such as those who go and seek for sanctions. When South Africa is under sanctions, they don't do that. Why do we allow elements who do that to sit comfortably in our parliament, to enjoy the proceeds of our taxpayers' money, which taxpayers' money is value is imported by sanctions? Our people are suffering out of them, but we allow them to sit comfortably in public offices. We allow their political parties to exist and campaign and contest peacefully and freely in our elections. We also allow them to cause disturbances after our elections. We also allow them to go and mobilize for the continuation of more sanctions. So let's have our own Morgan Act or an unsanctioned act in Zimbabwe that must outlaw organizations that have campaigned and brought this suffering, and must also make it very clear. Varuma organizations are vakabuda kumasa zvakakotewa kazvakanyora zvese zviripo havachatenderwi kukonesa any election again if it means kuti tinokonesa nana madhuku let it rather better because no one will zviri kumasango
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Mbadi. We will proclaim it already because you're already doing the PhD. All right, thank you. Just probably to make us understand where we're coming from, I think we need to elevate our reasoning a little bit. What we need to understand is that when we're talking about sanctions, we are talking about asymmetrical warfare. And when we talk about asymmetrical warfare, this is when we're talking about war of ideas. We talk about the war of the economy. We will talk about the war of the positioning of even our geopolitical situation. And this is where we are as a nation right now. We need to understand something here. The issue is, when we look at even our geopolitical situation in Zimbabwe, it's very critical. We realize that as Zimbabwe, we have got 20% of the world's diamond. Do you know that? 27% of the world's diamond, we are the one who have it. And then from there, we also have, we are the third in terms of platinum deposits. In Zimbabwe, we are the third in terms of platinum deposits. And again, right now, even until now, we realize that we have even failed to even quantify our amount of gold deposits in the country. That's how we are. And this is the situation that we have in Zimbabwe. And what we need to understand is that we have got a demographic dividend that we have as Zimbabweans. Just speaking into what the teacher was saying, he talked about the issue of us in terms of our domestic funding. If we look at the current situation that we have, when we look at the debt that we have as a country, 8 billion of the 13 billion, 8 billion is actually domestic debt. What it means is that the business people in Zimbabwe have got confidence in the government of the day. That's what it means. So what it means is that we have got the capacity as Zimbabweans for us to be able to even borrow from the people here in Zimbabwe, for us to capacitate our own organizations to go forward. The other issue that I want to say is that as much as we talk of domestic debt, or we talk about domestic funding, we have to realize that we also have to go forward and say, if ever we need to get FDI, what is it that we need to get? We need to get FDI in terms of mechanization. That's what we need to do. We need to go a step forward in terms of us going from a traditional model and us to go on the technological bit. We need to be technologized as a country, whether we go to an extent of making sure that we add technology and then we go on and then we start fighting in the economic space. Just to answer to what my brother said, which was more specific to me, you've spoken to my thoughts. I think it was in September last year, when I made a speech in Parliament. This is exactly what I said. I said,
this is the time now that we need to make sure that we create a law that is there to make sure that anyone who is going to go and speak against Zimbabwe in any way, that person has to be punished. And that has to become a law. I spoke into that, which I made the speech even, I believe Pali ZW is here, Open Pali is here, they can be able to even get an answer to that effect. I spoke into those issues. We need a law that will say that any person who has to talk of sanctions in any country, or we have to talk anything against our government of the day, or anything against the economy of Zimbabwe, that person has to be given a penalty. I think that is one thing that we need to do. When we go to that extent again, we also need to talk about the issue of red passports. You will realize that these BTs or whatsoever, they go on and then they go and start speaking negatively about Zimbabwe, especially in terms of sanctions, saying that Zimbabwe has to continue being, the sanctions have to be extended. They go on they go on with their red passports. So what we need to understand again is that I know it is a privilege that a parliamentarian should have, but I think it's not supposed to be a privilege, especially when you're going against the government of the day, because it is the government of the day that is giving that red passport. And for you to go again with that red passport, for you to go and speak against the government, I feel that those people's red passports have to be withdrawn as well. Because if ever they've got to go and then they speak against the government of the day, that is something that we think we need to go on and talk about. Like what I said, that when you look at Rousseau's cycle of development, it talks about 3 stages of development. The first one being the traditional one, that Zimbabwe is actually in right now. And then the next one being the modernization. And then the third one being the commercial side, which I believe all the other first world countries are into. This traditional phase that we are in right now, it needs us to be mechanized. We need to go on the technological front. That is the way to go for us to be economically emancipated as Zimbabwe. I thank you.
I think there are some issues over there. We can quickly respond.
All right, first I want to respond to the issue of our government giving land to the US. I think it wasn't our government that gave the land to the US. They bought that stand from the old mutual, and that has nothing to do with our government. Right. Then secondly, I want to talk about the Patriotic Act. I'm quite happy that the youth of today are now quite progressive. And sorry, madam, but tomorrow we're coming to petition the parliament with already booked with the police. We want that you as parliamentarians debate about this in parliament and actually enact an act that will prohibit people from claiming false abductions. That will prohibit people from bringing negative media about Zimbabwe. That will prohibit people from asking negative things that harm Zimbabwe. And we're going to ask you as the parliamentarians, because we realize that for some time, I think it's not yet 10 years after we gained our independence, but as parliamentarians have been debated about it. That's what I wanted to say.
Okay, I wanted just to look, he raised the idea of investors. It is indeed true that a country on its own must grow from the investment of its own people. That is the human capital, our minds, our brains, they should work towards developing our country. But also, when you look at it, sanctions do not affect mainly on the investment side on its own, but also the transacting side. If you want to make a payment right now, let's say probably to the UK, or maybe someone in the UK wants to make a payment to you who is in Zimbabwe, the bank that processes that transaction, it actually raises a red flag towards your destination, which is Zimbabwe. If you are sending money, you're a parent, I think there's a student, I thought that is one of the things I should have raised. You're a parent here in Zimbabwe, you have a student who is in China, you want to send money to them, you realize that you can't do that because of this flagging. So let us also look at the transactional restriction that is there. If you sell diamonds, let's say there are no sanctions against diamonds, but you sell diamonds, and then now you want to repatriate the return or the revenue from the diamonds, and you realize that there is a restriction on the bank that is sending money to you, then how do we live or how do we benefit from the wealth of the diamonds that we have sold? So the transactional element of it has to be considered. This is why CPZ, this is why Barclays was slapped with fines, because they proceeded to make transactions on behalf of a bank sending money to a destination that is sanctioned. I think we need to be a bit clear on that transactional part.
I think I'm seeing more hands coming up, and we should give room to that. So we'll take the last round of 5 questions, and of course there's number 1, there's number 2, number 3. Maybe let's just even add 3 more, and then 4, 5. So that's 5, and then we're done. So number 1, 2, 3, and then over that side. So maybe let's start off from this end. And then you'll be on number 2.
Thank you, moderator. My name is Langton Mabanga. I chair the National Business Council of Zimbabwe and also sit on the board of the Pan-African Chamber of Commerce. Let me recognize the panelists and the moderator and the esteemed leadership of the youth with the Deputy Secretary in our midst. Allow me to put a few things in perspective, especially around the democracy concept, the being of democracy. You also want to know that as we are having these conversations about the agony and the lamentations that were incurred due to the sanctions, our prayers are also with the very American citizens in Baltimore, in the United States of America. The blacks who are in Baltimore are marginalized, are being downtrodden, are being oppressed by the very American system. So the issue of sanctions on us is also color-coded, and it's happening in the very backyard of America. And let us not think about ourselves alone, but our fellow blacks in the United States of America. Democracy, as we say that sanctions must fall, the template of democracy that is being imposed on us should also fall. Fundamentally, democracy in any country must guard, must protect its legacy, must protect its resources, must protect its own people, must protect its own history. Why are we importing a democracy that is being imposed on us by the very system that our founding fathers sought to dislodge? And we are seeking legitimacy on the basis of a democracy that is authored by a system that will dislodge what's happening. Why are we being made subjects to a democracy authored by the erstwhile colonizers, and honestly think that it will edify our sovereignty, it will edify our liberation, will it edify our independence? Why are we so blinded that we are working for a democracy that we want to appease the West in America? Comrades, time has come that we define this narrative in its rightful context. It is another round of colonialism. It is another round of hegemonic power on our resources. America was not part of the land question. But indeed, they have an ego on the platinum, on the diamond, on the tobacco, on the mineralogy that this country is endowed with. Everywhere else, if you go to China, any political party can exercise its rights to do its politics within the context of the democracy that guards the history and the ideals of the Chinese history. Anything outside is illegitimate, is beside, it does not organically fit and sit in that jurisdiction. Why is our political arena so naked? Why is our political arena so diabolic to accommodate even political harlots who have been used to advance American interests on Zimbabwean soil? It is true that the American system, through the doctrine of agency, has got its frontage in Zimbabwe, on Zimbabwean soil. But they are American in their ideology, they are American in their attitude. Why then should they partake of the politics of this country? Why? Why should we continue to ascribe to that nature of democracy? I believe that we are almost a 40-year democracy as a nation. It is time that we put together a Zimbabwean democracy, an African democracy. What is that democracy? It is a democracy that recognizes Chimurenga Chakalwiwa. It is a democracy that recognizes Kutinika Europa. It is a democracy that recognizes Kutichiterwa Zerunomu, Nezevana Patema. It is a democracy that recognizes Kuti Ivunofana Kwenda Kunechiki. We have a generational mandate, young people, all of us today gathered. We have a generational mandate to ensure that we undo this being of a democracy that has enslaved us, that has impoverished us. And who's scoring big in this? Who is scoring big in this? Their frontage. We cannot go on like that. This is tantamount to reversing the gains of the liberation struggle. Not just the gains. It is tantamount to reversing the liberation struggle itself. And I think that's the mandate that sits on our shoulders today. The sanctions that have amounted to assault on the dignity of our women, the assault on the dignity of our young people, the assault on the dignity of our Africanness. And I think we can't go on. We cannot go on. And still reward them with our minerals, and still reward them with our land, and still reward them with our oil. For what? What have we done? What have we done? So I really think that we now need to pull together our all to stand firmly in full recognition that this struggle against sanctions is not ephemeral. We will not do it in one day. It is ahead of us. And we ought to hold true to our values. We ought to hold true to the ideals of the liberation struggle. We have to hold true to the ideals of the founding African fathers of the continent. Zimbabwe
is just a laboratory. They've pitched here, they're not stopping in Zimbabwe. They've started with the hardest ball. They will not stop. They will go to everybody. Hence the full recognition by SADC to set aside a day to be in solidarity with Zimbabwe. And we are doing this while in our midst we have Mama Zimbabwe, who are watermelons. Outside they say they're green, they're Zimbabwe. Inside they say no, we are Americans. They are red. So comrades, aluta continua.
Aluta.
The struggle is not small. We have competent young people who can do things with their hands. Our resource extractive laws must also fall. They are colonial. Comrades, it's not going to come easy. It's not going to come easy. The resource exploitative laws of this country serve the interests of the erstwhile colonizers of this country. Where is the space of young people in gold exploitation? Where is the space of young people? Hundreds of thousands of hectares lie fallow, and young people are without land. I think that journey is not small, but it has to be done, and it's imperative that it is done. And let me salute the Youth League for putting together this platform. This is a fundamental agenda-setting platform, and it must continue. And may God bless Zimbabwe, may God bless our young people in Zimbabwe, and God bless Zanu PF, and God bless our President, Comrade Idi Mnangagwa. Thank you.
Let's make them very brief, just questions and nothing else, and then we proceed.
Thank you very much. Apostle George Liwai. The first thing is I want to acknowledge the Youth League for a job well done. Even though I still feel in my spirit that this should not be an event, but it's a continuous process. That is to cascade to the last person in wards, in cell groups, even to the remotest of places. They should know about sanctions. The next thing I want to challenge the youth, I think, and also the parliamentarian who is here, we have left our president as a lone ranger. As we are here, I don't know the number, but I can assure you, maybe 70% of people never voted during the elections. But we are here, we can come and sit around tables. We are WhatsApp group professionals. We advocate for WhatsApp. But when the matters come that we need to stand up and say, enough with sanctions, we are not there. During the elections, the margin that our parliamentarians put together scored against NDC, it was a very huge margin that would have given our president the sole right to enjoy his term of office. But what happened, the margin that our president scored against the opposition was just a minimum number, and he was put on risk. So I think it's a high time that as the youth and as Zimbabwe, we need to stand up and say, sanctions are to go. Not tomorrow, not another day, but today. It starts with you. Let's come out of the WhatsApp platforms. I know everyone, wants to be an administrator. I think it's a form of employment, taking in out people. But I think now we need to stand up and say if there is a call that we are going to walk against sanctions, 25 October, someone is thinking of being on WhatsApp, just sending messages out of the action. Let's come where we are told we need to be together. Let's fight against sanctions. Zimbabwe is for us. Zimbabwe is for Zimbabweans. It has to be very clear. We are Zimbabweans. We are one people. Anyone who is speaking against Zimbabwe is not a Zimbabwean by birth or by blood. We need to be Zimbabweans. Thank you.
There are other questions, strictly questions over there. And also brief comments are welcome, very brief to the point.
My name is Shindi Chitaka, and I would like to thank the Zanu Youth League for setting up this platform. And I hope these conversations that we're having today are going to be converted into substantive actions that will see us becoming a better nation. The economic prowess that the United States abuses today is as a result of that document called the Declaration of Independence, which is subsequently gave birth to their constitution, which then gave birth to laws like the Patriot Act. And we need to understand their position. It doesn't matter if they're going to be having a Democratic president or they're going to have a president of the Republican Party. Their position on foreign policy is consistent. Moving on to Zimbabwe, we enjoy